We always love to hear from you here at Impact, so contact us by email, impact@proctors.org, or like us on Facebook. Enter Impact Show and click on like. So first we have the arts segment hosted by Philip Morris. Philip has a very special guest for us this week, so let's watch Philip Morris's interview in the arts segment.
Welcome to Impact. This is the arts segment, and I'm Philip Morris, CEO of Proctors, the interviewer. Today our guest is Randall Perry, the founder of Randall Perry Photography. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me
here. Now this show is about artists and their impact on the world, and maybe sometimes as a commercial photographer you don't feel like an artist. I don't know. I hope you do.
I do.
Oh, excellent.
I do every day.
Yeah, because many times the divide between the not-for-profit and the commercial art world seems so thick, you know.
Mm-hmm.
People forget architects are artists, and photographers, even if they're shooting, you know, eggs for Price Chopper, are artists. And so I'm glad that you feel that way.
I feel like that every day I wake up, which is really a blessing. Artists should love their work. If they don't love their work, they shouldn't be an artist and they shouldn't be in that business. Commercial photographers, if I didn't absolutely love what I do every day, it'd be an unfortunate situation. But every day I wake up, I'm just so happy that I do what I do.
Now, architecture, you said as we were talking about this interview earlier that a lot of your work is in architecture. Why do people bother shooting architecture? What's that about?
Well, why do they bother? Any trade magazines you've looked in, consumer magazines, websites, you know, design submissions for architects, builders, things like that, all those things need to be photographed. We do, I'd say 80 to 90% of our work is architectural photography for builders, architects, institutional, you know, schools, colleges, things like that, hotels, resorts, restaurants.
Is some of it documentary in nature, or is it most of it meant for promotional or display?
Mainly promotional. It'll be, in fact, today, right now, I'm doing a shoot at the Cary Conference Center. So I left there. It's the old Rensselaerville Institute.
Yep.
It's a 3-day photo shoot, and they're rebranding themselves completely from the Rensselaerville Institute to Cary Conference Center. Redoing all the rooms, redoing the dining hall, the grounds, the conference center. Everything needs to be redone. Rebranding themselves. It'll be ads, you know, New York Times, ads in trade magazines, websites, brochures, so kind of the whole gamut.
So when someone hires you, you know, again, at the Cary Institute, they have a promotional thing. If an architect hires you, might it be for submissions of some kind?
It would be submissions for design awards. A lot of times when you see that so-and-so received, you know, the Design of Excellence, the AIA Award, New York State, you know, whatever, they had to submit, hopefully, professional photographs, and we're hired to do that. They'll have different sheets for different projects, project sheets, and we're hired to do that. A lot of architects have websites. Most that I work for have websites, and we do their photography for that as well.
Do you have other photographers on staff?
I have one other person who is a digital specialist. He's been with me 15 years, and he does everything kind of behind the scenes, the processing, Photoshop, the estimating, any studio work, and he's a photographer in his own right, yes.
So some people believe that because of Photoshop, you don't have to be a good photographer anymore. Go for it.
Whoa, we hear, can you Photoshop it? If I had, even the expression, I guess the inflation, it used to be a nickel, you know, if I had a penny for every time I heard Photoshop, I could almost retire. I hear that probably 10 times a day in a photo shoot, every single day without, you know, can you just Photoshop it? It's a bad day. Can you just add, you know, a blue sky? Can you do this? Maybe just Photoshop it. You know, it's the wrong bedspread. It's the wrong curtains. Can you, on and on and on. No, you need to be a good photographer. You need to have good images. You need to have a good camera. You know, everything needs to be, for me, everything needs just to be great. Great design, great composition, great camera, great lenses, you know, all the way across. And you just don't, we do fix things later, yes, in Photoshop. The telephone poles there, it shouldn't be. The hydrant, smoke detectors, fire alarms, vents in the ceiling. Those things, yes, but we're not about to say, let's get out of here. It's 5 o'clock on a Friday. I have better places to be. We'll fix it later. We don't work like that.
And the results are obvious, I think. When you see something that's been radically changed.
I think so.
You can unwrap that. I mean, in
Right.
court they can do it, and I think most people with an eye can go, wait a second, that was faked, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can probably see it.
I think for me, this is my 26th year in business working for myself, and I worked for another local photographer here for just about 2 years, 3 years in High Point, North Carolina, Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So I mean, I've really kind of been around the block, so to speak. So it's been quite a few years. We used 11 by 14 cameras in the studios that I worked at in High Point, North Carolina, and in New Jersey, and we used 8 by 10 film cameras, and then 4 by 5 was an everyday thing. I used my 4 by 5 camera religiously up to probably 5 years ago, and it was a very, very, very hard transition to go to digital. And I think by having that training, you just, if there was a cord on the floor, you got rid of it. You moved it. If the curtains weren't straight, you straightened them with, gaffer's tape. If something wasn't right, that piece of film was that piece of film, and that was it. There wasn't Photoshop. So I think starting off today, and the kids, students who don't know anything about that at all, about the old days, and it's just, it's Photoshop. Don't worry with that cord that's on the floor. Just Photoshop it. Put a little blue out the window. We're purists, and our training is very pure, and so I think that's good.
In High Point, were you doing furniture?
I was doing furniture. It was the furniture market.
Yeah, because the big furniture markets.
Two of the largest studios in the country are in High Point, and I worked, interned at one, and then had a full-time job for 2 years at another. And it was just day after day I was in charge of 3 different room sets, and we would do Hendredon, Pennsylvania House, Drexel Heritage, Mannington floors, Target floors, anything for the home industry, and that's what got my background really started.
So what's harder, architecture or furniture?
I think furniture and architecture. And you say, you're shaking your head, okay,
yeah,
what does that mean? And because of my background in lighting, in High Point, there's people who say, oh, I can do an interior. Come in with a couple umbrellas, stick them in the corner of the room, light up the room, and it's lit up, all right? I like
umbrellas, just so people know, are
lighting umbrellas.
Lighting umbrellas,
right? And just kind of give a good overall illumination to the room. It's balanced with the outside. My background was in a studio situation like this, and I'd have a fake ceiling, and I'd have an array. I'd have 20 or 30 lights to use, and I would light I'd light the carpet, I'd light the legs of the tables, the dressers, the nightstands. Everything got lit because the products were for bedding, for the pillows, for the furniture, for the carpet. Everything had to be lit, not in an artificial way, but just had a shine. So now when I approach any of the jobs that I do, I don't even have an umbrella. I have one in the car today because I needed it to get in here. But everything that I do is all kind of pinpoint lit, and it still has that same, that quality of lighting behind it.
So, because I think of furniture shoots is probably incredibly difficult because of the shadows.
The shadows can be killers.
Right, because there's lots of pieces and they're shadowing on each other all the time.
And my clients see that, the coffee tables are almost the worst because underneath it is a shadow. If it's a solid piece, the shadow's just off to the side. When they see this black, what's that? It's a shadow. Do we have to have it? Well, there's a light on it, and the light can't end. It has to keep on going. So then we find ourselves putting a light on the floor to kind of skim through it. So we do a lot with lighting to make things look natural.
So digital, tell me about the transition. Why was it so painful for you?
Oh, it was painful, I think because I'm old school, and I just love my 4x5 camera. I still use it. I just used it last week in Florida, so I still do use it. And I like the process of that. I like the idea of switching lenses. I like the idea of the dark cloth. It was something special when you were hired and you used that camera. It wasn't something that every person on the street would go to Best Buy or Walmart and buy a view camera, 4x5 camera. They're individual sheets of film. You would slide in the back, take them out, have them processed, but first slide in a Polaroid back, look at the Polaroid, show it to the client. They go, what about this? Oh, I see a clothespin back there. Oh, we'll get rid of that. Not in Photoshop, we'll pick the clothespin up. What about this? Flag's not flying right, an exterior shot, we'll wait for the wind to pick up. So you would see all those things on the Polaroid. When everything was right, all the situation for the scene, we would shoot 4, 5, 6, 8 sheets of film just to make sure we had it. We'd bring it to the lab, drop it off, go back, pick it up, kind of smell it, have that smell of the lab. You worked in a dark room.
I did C22.
Yes,
I would,
you know that
stuff.
smell. It kind of, you grow up with it. So, you go back to the lab, you walk in the door and it just smells like a lab. You look at your film, you look at it with a loop. It was a whole process. I would meet with my client, bring a light box, bring the 4x5 mat board, 8x10 with a 4x5 opening, put it over it so all the extraneous light is out of your eyes and you would just see the image. It was very special. Now, now with digital, it's completely different. It's completely different. It's right on the laptop. Everyone loves it. We can shoot many, many exposures. Yesterday at the Institute, doing the fires, the newspaper fire to get the perfect one. We shot 20 different frames. Fire's going this way, fire's going this way. Just the one is right. It's pouring rain out. We've got lights outside under umbrellas, real umbrellas, shining in. Every shot looks like a sunny day. And it was pouring out, as you know, yesterday. So we do a lot of that, just a lot of kind of magic making.
So what was the pain though? Was the pain just that you were so used to the process, or was the pain a lack of trust?
Lack of trust in the quality of it, lack of lack of wanting to learn the whole new processing of the files. Everyone has a video. Everyone has a digital camera now, all right? So the camera I have may be the same one that you have, maybe the same one that somebody else has. It's not special. It's special with the eyes and the composition and the years of experience and the dedication and everything else that goes through to get the professional image. So yes, you can get the same camera. I can buy the same video cameras as these. Do I know how to use them? No.
Well, I was thinking about this the other day because my daughter's actually a photographer and is considering going to the Hallmark school.
Okay.
And she's just interviewing and stuff. And I was thinking about, 1930s, whenever the Kodak introduced the Brownie, professional photographers must have went, oh my God, everyone's going to be a photographer now. But of course that didn't happen because everyone was a photographer, but no one was a photographer.
Exactly.
Isn't that the case now?
That is the case now. It's a good point. When the websites first came around, okay, one step before that, maybe not one step before, but in that same time period, everyone was like, no one's going to need photography anymore. There's not going to be any brochures. There's not going to be magazines. There's not going to be this. There's not going to be mailers. It's all going to be websites. I was like, really? Or where are all those photographs coming from? Right? Same thing.
You almost need more of them for websites.
We see more of them.
Right.
We couldn't be busier with, and the ideal thing with that is we can go back, we are going back in 2 weeks back to the conference center. They're redoing rooms. They don't have to hold up a brochure. They will hold up the brochure waiting for all our final images. They don't need to hold up their website. Okay, they want to launch it with anything new they can get soon. They can launch it with the 15 new shots we're doing. We'll go back in 3 weeks, 12 more shots. They can upload that when everything is all completed, all the grounds are done and the flowers are beautiful and everything else. We do that July, August. The brochure can then be put into the works. That's the good part. The website can start. We do things all the time for people who just want to do 1 or 2 shots for their website. They aren't doing the brochure. They just, we do a lot with hospitality, a lot with inns, hotels like that. They're famous for that. They just they need to constantly updo,
Right, and they don't want to do that with someone who's not a professional photographer.
Exactly.
They don't have the eye.
Right.
Yeah, I was intrigued to think about. There's an app on the iPad that's lovely. It's from the Guardian newspaper in England.
Okay.
And it's 1 photograph a day that the Guardian considers the most significant news and its most significant image. And every day I look at it because I'm reminded, holy mackerel, you got to be good. I couldn't do that with my iPhone if I spent a lifetime. Every image is remarkable, and it's because someone knows what they're doing.
Right.
So what's the most fun shoots you've done? It's really kind of, you've gone home and went, that was spectacular.
Boy. This 3-day shoot that I'm doing is fun. All right.
It's a beautiful place.
It's a beautiful place. Last night, it couldn't have been foggier. Okay, I'm not sure if you were out and about. We lit up the conference center, the actual conference center inside, and I wanted to see the hike house in the background. I had a couple 2,000-watt lights out on the lawn, thinking right at twilight, you'll see it won't just be bright sunlight, it won't just be dark, it'll be right at twilight. It couldn't have been foggier. So in the distance was the hike house, and kind of hard to see. So as we were leaving, I saw, all right, couldn't really tell what it was. We came outside, and the place, because our lights were glowing through this building. It was absolutely spectacular. I mean, that to me is just, that was just a bonus. That wasn't even on the shot list to do it all. I mean, I work out in the Cape and I work down in Southwest Florida. When I go to, and locally here, obviously, when I go to the 3 completely diverse locations, they're diverse clients, diverse jobs. I mean, every job I do. I mean, I wouldn't even want to say I had a favorite, because last week I was out in the Cape for 4 days photographing hotels and inns and just beautiful places with beautiful people who just appreciate what I do and hire me back each
That's
year.
great. That's great. So what about the art scene in the Capital Region? What have you seen change in 26 years?
As far as the local art scenes, there's a lot more. I mean, look at Proctors Theater in itself. I mean, I photographed this 4 or 5 years ago.
Right.
I did the different theaters,
Great
the GE Theater, the Inside Theater. I've done the the Palace Theater, Cahoe's Music Hall. I mean, a lot of different theaters, and there's so many great venues for art in this region. If you're not, when people say, who come out of the area, what do you do up there? How can you live there? In the winter they come up, and what do you possibly do? If you can't find something to do for dining out, restaurants, in the arts, in this immediate area, you're not really looking very far. You pick up the Metroland, you pick up any of the local arts paper. If you're into that type of thing, there isn't enough hours in the day, especially the weekends. That's when most of us have the time to do all the different things that are that are offered.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So you warned me that if I started this, you wouldn't be able to stop. So I'm doing it last. What's the most outrageous, the worst experience you had as a photographer?
The worst experience I had?
Right, so you won't have the time to roll because we're going to have to cut soon.
Okay. Boy, luckily I don't have
a
lot of them to think of. I photographed a home in Naples, Florida, between a double gated community. A gated community is, okay, this is a community
within that,
okay, and it was about a $25 million home. The homeowner was not supposed to be coming down. He came down because he just wanted to see what we were doing. We had the whole thing planned. He was livid that we were there. It was for an auction company because he was having a very hard time making his payments with the dues and the taxes and the golf membership and everything else. So he was in really dire straits. The company that I work for, who I do very, very high-end properties like that, had called me to do this, and they had to get on the market. They had to get it sold. They had to, the auction was coming up. That job, from the time it started, turned into a nightmare. The part that ended it as a nightmare, we did a night shot, washing down the pavers, lit up, everything else, did the shot at twilight, left all the lights set up, and I lost the card that goes in the camera. Completely lost the card. So all the shots inside the house, the outside, it was a nightmare. It doesn't sound like a nightmare to you lost the card. I couldn't get back into the house. The auction was coming up. The brochures, the ads were taken out, full-page ads, New York Times, Naples Illustrated. Everything was done, and I couldn't get back into this house. So I didn't know how I was going to call my client. I had no idea what I was going to do. So I had to think of something. So I thought, well, let's be honest, and let's start there and tell the client exactly what happened. We looked everywhere on the lawn. The grass in Florida is like this thick. It's like a shag carpet, 4 inches. We looked everywhere. Could not find the card, and breaking out in a sweat and everything else. So she called me back. I only got her voicemail and told her I just can't find the card. So she called me back and says the homeowner reneged on the contract. He is not going to sell the house, and don't worry about any of the photographs. We'll pay you for your time. Unbelievable.
Wow. Well, that's a great story.
I don't know. It was a very stressful time. It was very, very stressful. And it's the only time we were just on a roll. We didn't have time to back things up. The guy was there. He was over our shoulder saying, why are you doing this again? We already have photographs of that. And he showed me the photographs from someone else. And I said, that's why I'm here, because they don't want to use those photographs. And it wasn't good.
Wow, what a story. Well, thank you very much for joining me, and thank you for helping to upgrade the visual literacy of the Capital Region.
I hope I did
for which you've done quite a bit. That's Randall Perry of Randall Perry Photography. I'm Philip Morris from Proctors. Thank you for joining us on Impact. Proctors, bringing the best in arts, education, and entertainment.